Hey folks, Jimmy here, aka Palette of the Dead. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a new Warhammer 40k Imperium painting video. Now, as per usual with all these videos, if you like them, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course drop a comment down below. Love hearing back from you guys, and it goes an absolute massive way to help the channel too. Now, in this video I wanted to go through how I painted up that Tech Priest Dominus figure that we got from good old Imperium magazine a few issues back, and really good fun. The Adeptus Mechanicus are a range that I do quite like. They have some pretty unique looking units and they look a bit fun and a little bit nuts, a little bit bonkers, and slightly alien but in a human way, which is really cool stuff. And this is a mini I actually really enjoyed painting. So without further ado, let's crack on with it. So instead of having a Mechanicus standard grey base coat like I normally would, I went with an Ironbreaker base coat. This is completely out of the usual for me, and it is a little bit different, and that is only because of all the little rips and tears that you can see in the cloak and the kind of fabric have a lot of metalwork in between them. So as you can see, what I'm doing is, after that base coat, I'm layering over with Nuln Oil. Now the Nuln Oil gets into all them recesses early on, so I'm not having to piddle about going into little areas too soon. Now, for my Adeptus Mechanicus, I did not want to go down the bog standard route of painting them in red. I chose to go with Wraithbone. Now, this gives it a kind of a creamy beigey kind of look. It's very kind of bland in a way, but it stands out very differently, as you can see on that mini right there. Now, over certain areas I wanted to add some black to it, so I used Abaddon black over certain little areas, like for instance the main housing for the firearms and a couple of extra little tiny areas as well, just because it adds to the colour. It brings it out, it makes everything stand out a little bit more, and you don't want everything looking too metallic at the same time. So this gives it a very nice look and works pretty damn well, in all honesty. And then I decided to edge highlight early, so I started doing some edge highlights on the armour pieces using Retributor armour. This breaks up all that silvery kind of colour, which works wonders anyway, but with that gold breaking it up, it actually makes it really nice and makes it pop, and it's more eye-catching at the same time. And then it's time to apply a wash over all that fabric, and I'm using Seraphim Sepia here, which is very handy for things like Wraithbone because it darkens certain areas up. I just made sure I missed out on the big massive tears in the cloth itself, but going over the vast majority of everything, this sits really well and works very nicely as well. But because you do that, you darken it down too much and it can look a little bit streaky, so it is definitely wise to go back over using that base coat of Wraithbone to bring up all the highlights again and leaving in all that shaded area in all them recesses. Now I think this looks very nice, and it works very well, and it's a technique I've used on many other things including cloaks and fabrics before, so it does work well. And then I wanted to add some extra metallic work to parts of it as well. So what I'm using here is I'm using Warplock Bronze, which is one that I don't use very often, over some small sections of metalwork of the actual mini. And as you can see, I've also painted up that servo skull as well, using the Wraithbone and using the Skeleton Horde contrast paint as well on there, in all honesty. And then I've also used some Basilicum Grey over certain areas. Now, there is a good reason for this. If you layer it up over metallic and you layer it up kind of thick, it actually looks like a really black metal work, which looks really nice. I must admit, it's a technique I did not realise would work very nice, and I was just mucking around when I did it, and I think it works wonders. Now for the engine, kind of like the iconography of that cog, I wanted to paint it up using Corax White. This makes it stand out very, very nicely and separates it from all the metalwork. And then also because you have got a couple of tanks on the back of the good old Tech Priest Dominus here, I felt like I needed to add some Corax white to it before I started painting it up with the colours that are going to be inside, and this does a very nice job out of it. Then for the kind of the finer work on that revolver that is in the Tech Priest's other hand, I used Dryad bark over the kind of the barrel area, which gives it a nice look as well, so it kind of makes it look pretty cool and gives it a nice different look, more of an ornate old style look. And then for the lower half of the kind of the staff that he's carrying, I wanted to do something slightly different, so I used Mechanica Standard Grey. Now, normally I'd paint this up in red and it would look pretty decent, but I thought there needs to be something different here, so I used Mechanica Standard Grey as the base coat, and I used different techniques over it all to kind of get it going really in the end. And then it's time to paint up the good old tanks on the back. So here I'm using good old Warflesh. Now Warflesh is a dark green. It does work very, very nicely. It works very, very well. However, I wanted this to all be dark green over the top and then use some lighter greens in between and over the top of everything, and it stands out a lot bit better. And then over things like the skull on the icons, I did actually use a little bit of Liberator Gold. In all honesty, it works very, very nicely. It kind of brings a little bit of a pop to the colour as well. I also use Liberator Gold over the finer detail work of that revolver, which makes it just stand out a little tiny bit better, and makes it look a little bit older at the same time. And then once that was done, I used a little bit of good old Army Painter's Kraken skin and a little bit of green skin from Army Painter as well over the kind of, to improve that green texture and make it look like there's a couple of green liquids inside them tanks. It kind of works. I'm happy with it. I think it could be better, and I maybe could have done better, but I think this was probably just the way I wanted it, in all honesty. And then I did some Administratum highlights, grey highlights on the sections of that staff, and I thought this was going to take too long, so what I did, I actually used Basilicum Grey to go into all them recesses, and then I went back over Mechanica Standard Grey and some very small occasional highlights of Administratum Grey as well, to give it a kind of a grey leather texture, which actually stands out a lot better as well. And then using Warplot Bronze again, I went over some more areas of metalwork just to give it a little bit more detail and a little bit more of a change, and I think it works very, very well, in all honesty. That is it generally. A couple of extra little tiny bits and pieces that I did to it. I did use some good old Abaddon Black on some of the cabling and tubes that are coming down from everything. I also used good old Blood Angels Red on the metallic eye of a servitor and on the other eye, and I also used some blues on the actual eyes of the Tech Priest himself. I also used Pallid Witch Flesh and then a layer of Reikland Flesh Shade over that still very human fleshy hand that he does have, that he's holding that kind of walking stick, that cane that he's using, and that was it really. Other than that, you can have a bit of fun with it. It's a pretty cool model. I really enjoyed painting it, and I didn't think I was going to enjoy painting it that much, and I actually did. I thought it was a really cool one. The Adeptus Mechanicus that I am going to paint up, I am going to use a very similar colour combination. I have not designated them a Forge World yet, or a kind of cohort name or anything like that yet. This is something that I will do at a later point, and I can't wait to show you as well. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you sometime soon. Bye bye now.